So, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. It's indecent hour, of course, but we have also to take advantage of these times. My name is Stefano Manservisi. I'm the chair of GCERF, the Global Community Engagement and Resilience Fund, which is an international organization which is based in Geneva. And we can define it as the only global fund which is financing prevention of violent extremism and radicalization. So a key element in order to prevent terrorism, to put that straight. But it's not that evident to focus on this preventive activity. The reason why I will just tell you in a few minutes what GCERF is doing, how it has been created, and then what are the next challenges. First, we are here because we decided to have the board meeting here in Brussels in order to, let's say, underline first the very intense relationship with the European Union and its member states. The European Union is the biggest contributor now to GCERF, European Union and member states. Second, because it is also an opportunity to discuss prevention of terrorism with the institutions. This afternoon we have a meeting with the counter-terrorism coordinator here in the council. Myself have been here as a director general in the commission, both for development and for home affairs. So therefore it's really the board here yesterday and today. So therefore that is why we are here. Important to have an exchange with you in order to make it better known, what GCERF is and what it is doing. Now, GCERF has been created by Global Counterterrorism Forum at the time of President Obama, back to 2014, along with two other bodies, one dealing with justice and the other dealing with capacity building, HEDAIA and JCTT. And, but GCERF is the biggest one, is the global fund, and it is the one which is leading, let's say, the scene in prevention of violent extremism. I say this because it's true, in the sense that, there are many things that say prevention is important, all these activities are important, but at the end of the day, this turns at the very maximum into projects which can add a layer on a development paper, or they can add a layer in a security paper. But in the middle, what is used to be called the nexus between development and security, meaning real people on the grounds, then it remains quite empty. Now, this is precisely what the GCERF is doing and its peculiar, let's say, specificity. GCERF is financing directly local communities in order to empower them to resist from terrorism, to reject terrorism, to create a resilience from inside. I underline this because it's the only one organization which is putting money directly into the pocket of those which then will stop terrorism. Obviously, it's a risky activity, That's the reason why you need to be specialized. That's the reason why you need to know the territory. That's the reason why to do it with the governments. And this is the second feature of this global fund of GCERF, working with the government in order to push them to have a meaningful prevention of violent extremism and radicalization strategy as a part of their counterterrorism strategy. Within this, to identify where are the hotspots, where groups are active, where societies are more fragile, and to identify these hotspots in order to concentrate resources on this. Concentrating resources mean to be part of this program, of this national strategy, but then to go there and to identify the people which are likely to be the protagonists of this, let's say, operation which is pushing back terrorists and creating alternatives. They could be imam, could be teacher, could be, local people. And to underline clearly that GCERF is working only with local societies. There is no NGO coming from Europe or from elsewhere, is really working at grassroots with the people. Now, this is basically the approach, to put it quite, let's say, straight, and enter into details later if you want. It means that having started in 2014, now GCERF is working in, and you have seen at the entrance, on a range of countries which are from the Western Balkans, and we have here, the honor to have the Minister of Interior of Kosovo, in Northern Africa, Tunisia in particular. Now we have also Morocco as a partner, in the Sahel, in the Gulf of Guinea, in the Horn of Africa, Somalia, in Southern Africa or Eastern Africa, in Mozambique in particular, then Central Asia, then Far East. I've been working in Sri Lanka, in Indonesia, So we are covering basically in the Philippines, we are covering a broad range of areas in which terrorism is a threat in order to intervene to prevent its multiplication or simply to counter its proliferation. So therefore, this is in the fact sheet you see, how many people GCERF have been able to reach, and to reach meaning exactly what I said, to go there, to talk to them, to identify the people which can become the protagonist of all this. This is the way in which GCERF is working. Here, you can have numbers which are in reality true, but by default, in a sense, because in the moment when you have a community which is well equipped in order to reject terrorism, and to create alternatives because they are trained for jobs, because there are peace laboratories, which are engaging what? Dialogues among the different parts of the society, then obviously you can have some numbers which could be identified. But it is obvious that this number are always by default. This is not something. It is worth underlining another point: value for money, because every time that we are talking about investing in the Sahel, investing in the Horn of Africa, investing elsewhere, you are confronted with big numbers, billions of development assistance, billions for security, etc. Well, this activity targeted in this way and producing a positive dynamic, it costs more or less $40 per person. And these $40 are, an investment, which is an investment in peace, which is an investment in resilience of a society. So, and very often it's not easy to understand, because these 40 euros or $40 are in the middle of fantastic budget of development, which are obviously important, fantastic number for security, hard security, but at the end of the day, this is what matters the most. As a last point, I would like to underline that GCERF is also something more than this specific approach and this specific way and reaching out to these millions of people that are specified in the fact sheet. It is also, in these days, is particularly important, a sort of experiment of multilateralism. It is an organization around the table of which are sitting what we used to call donors and what we used to call beneficiary or partners. Around the GCERF table, we are all partners, meaning that this objective of prevention of violent extremism and radicalization is a shared one, is conceived together. People from Niger, which are member, are participating to the definition of the strategy in Indonesia, and vice versa. They are all represented on equal footing. So there is no, as usually, in the organization, some which are putting money and decide, and others which are receiving money and shut up. In this organization, everybody is deciding on the same footing. And this is, let's say, in these days in which, and rightly so, we are talking about, the crisis of multilateralism, and there is reason, of course, to explain all this. I think, like you, we have been all involved into the, never-ending UN reform, etc., fine. But this organization is practicing a multilateralism which is very peculiar. All our partners, all are contributing, because even the poorest country, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, are putting money into this global fund. So it's more than ownership. It's the willingness of sharing. And That's the reason why GCERF remains active in all the regions of the world where, our action could be meaningful, sustainable, and visible to make changes. But it is decided collectively. Very lean organization, very small secretariat, people on the ground, everything is invested to prevent bioterrorism, financing people, putting money in the pocket of these people and working with them, of course. This is the key things, but this aspect of multilateralism is particularly important because we are talking about that. We are almost, to a certain extent, used now to say, well, multilateralism is a bit over, it's a problem, etc. Well, it's not true, and we can demonstrate that. Others are also experience of multilateralism. This is very efficient. And the evidence is the fact that everybody is sitting around the same table, everybody has the same weight in taking decisions, everybody is contributing. And last point, as I said at the beginning, the European Union has invested a lot on this, is now the biggest donor. You have the list of the countries which are member of GCERF, which are contributing in different way, but all together being engaged into this, let's say, into this activity of prevention. And prevention is not always visible enough, allow me to say, and to conclude on this. That's the reason why I would say the importance also of this moment with the press here in Brussels is to underline this. Very much supported by EIS, by AFPI, by the Commission, by the Member States, sometimes through the development channel, sometimes through the security channel. But, the concept of prevention is still something which is not visible enough. The reason why we are counting very much on today's dialogue, let's say, in order maybe to enter a bit more into detail. Now, our traditional activity is the one I described. To create this kind of resilience. But, and now I stop and give the floor to my colleagues, there is a new challenge that everybody can see and can appreciate. The camps of northeast Syria, where families and former fighters of Daesh and Al-Qaeda are concentrated. These camps, everybody knows, are a sort of cancer, not only for Syria, not only for that part of the world, but for all of us. First, because many of these citizens and families are coming from European Union member states. Second, because big numbers of these people are of Syrian nationality, meaning, therefore, that there is another challenge to the attempt to rebuild a peaceful Syria, after the Saddam regime's fall. So the camps now are crucially important. And GCERF has started, one of the first, by the way, doing this, in identifying the people, in preparing these people to return and to be reintegrated in the societies of the countries of origin. Kosovo is one of these countries which has a strong, let's say, program to receive and to reintegrate. Albania is another one. Bosnia is another one. Others in Northern Africa and elsewhere, in Iraq, for example. You have to consider that each person there is a different story. It means, therefore, that we need to be in the camp, we need to identify the need, and to work with the country of origin, which are about to receive these people, to prepare the ground. It's not easy. It's not just a question of criminal code. It's a question of reintroduction in societies in which these people do not know anymore. Against them, they left, and they were living in a myth, the myth of the Islamic State or whatever. So this is a new avenue in which GCERF has started its activity, and which we count to develop in partnership with the European Union and with others, United States, for example, possibly, in order to, let's say, address this issue on the camps, which is a threat, because you can easily imagine that all these people are without future, they are all young, and therefore, if they don't have an alternative, by guarantee, they will become a new wave of terrorism. Therefore, this is a new avenue on which we will, my colleague will explain even more why and how we are doing this, linked to the broad mandate and the broad activity that GCERF is performing. Thank you very much. Now, I think, Lila, you want to say?
Okay. I mean, look, Thanks, Stefano. My name's Khalid Koster. I'm the Executive Director at GCERF. 2 words from me and then hand over to my colleague Lila and to the Minister from Kosovo. As you can hear, we're trying to zoom in on the camps. We're doing work in many other places in the world. Happy to answer questions on those. But let me just put the camps in context for you. And then my colleague Lila, who was in the camps a couple of months ago, can share with you her experiences of the camps before we hear from the Minister about his very hard work in reintegrating people from the camps. In our analysis, the global environment is more conducive to violent extremism and terrorism today than at any point since the Arab Spring. And for us, there are at least 4 flashing red lights when you look at the global picture. One is Afghanistan. It is quite clear that there's a rising threat within Afghanistan, very hard politically for the international community to cope with. The other, as Mr. Mansavisi has mentioned, is the Sahel. All of the data point to the Sahel being the epicenter of the global risk on terrorism at the moment. The third is the camps. And Lila will say more about this, but something like 60,000 former fighters and their families in camps, some of them already escaping, real risks around those people and what happens to them and where they go and what we can do to solve the camps. And I think the fourth area of concern for all of us is the fallout from Gaza. And we are seeing around the world, in the communities where we're working, a real anger about what has taken place in Gaza. So there's another radicalizing element there. Now, I think of those 4, these are serious challenges: Afghanistan, the Sahel, Gaza. Of the 4, the least insurmountable, the one that perhaps we can actually do something about quickly, are the camps. And it seems to me that a collective effort, if we put our minds to it, we can evacuate most of those 60,000 people. We can take them back to their countries of origin, and hopefully successfully we can reintegrate them. And I think of all of the challenges, that's the one that we should be focused on in the next couple of years. And that's all I'll say by context. Lila, please.
Thank you very much, Khalid. And in order to do this, our organization have established a global rehabilitation and reintegration mechanism, which is a mechanism with the objective to reduce the number of people in the camp. Currently, there are 2 camps, Al-Roj and Al-Hol. Al-Hol, by far the largest one, holding about 15,600 Syrians, still 4,500 Iraqis, and nearly 6,500 foreigners from 42 different nationalities. Al-Roj is a smaller one with about 2,200 people. What we are aiming to do and what we have seen in the camp is, especially among the foreigners, which we refer to the third country nationals. These are not the Iraqis and not the Syrians, but the other people. That most of these people have been there since the fall of Bangus, 2019. It's 6-7 years that they have been in an environment that is highly unconducive for children, for young people to grow up. We have seen, this is a stone desert, 2-3 hours away from any large city. When we visited back in August, the temperature was about 52 degrees. There is no shade, there is no trees, it's a desert. What we have experienced, especially in this foreign annex, that the children, that the women, many of them are highly radicalized. Before we even step down from our vehicle to go, the camp is divided, Al-Hol is divided into 3 annexes: the Syrians, the Iraqis, and the foreigners. There is you cannot pass from one annex to another one, so they are separated. It's a closed camp with about 10 square kilometers in the desert, as I have mentioned. When we step down from our vehicles, and they have seen that we are foreigners, despite being appropriately dressed and covered, immediately children were picking up the stones and aiming to throw at us. They have been showing the signs of being affiliated with Daesh, the Islamic State, which is pointing the finger up. They have been showing that they are going to cut our thrones. They have been saying things that the Islamic State at the moment is dormant, but it will rise again. We have talked to many of them who voluntarily came to us to speak to, and there are 3 categories of foreigners in Al-Hol and also in Al-Roj. Clearly, about 20-25% are extremely radicalized, and they absolutely don't want to go back to their countries of origin. There are 20-25% that are highly regretting their action. They have repented. They are ready, especially the women, are ready to face the judiciary procedures when they return to their country of origin. But there are about 50% of them that we call the grays, the so-called non-decided one, who have not decided whether to sign up for voluntary return or looking for opportunities. And we believe that with our program that we have put in place in Arroj and also in Al-Hol, we can influence them. We can influence these mothers, these women, to convince their children that there is a better future, there is a future which is an alternative to joining the Islamic State or any other terrorist organizations. The other thing that we have observed in the camps is that a lot of babies, a lot of very young children, and this has been also confirmed by humanitarian organizations that are looking or that are providing the medical services. Now you ask the question, how is this possible? Because there are no men, grown men in the foreign section, because once they reach a certain age or 18 years old, they are being removed or they have been removed from the camp, yet there are babies. Clearly, there is child sexual abuse. A lot of the young boys are being misused and being raped by elder or older women in order to maintain the line of the caliphate, in order to maintain and produce new children who can eventually join Daesh and other groups. This is one of the gravest form of child rights violation. The other thing that we have seen is that there is really desperation, and since April, May, the number of incidents inside both camps, Al-Hol and Arroj, that is committed by these young people have significantly and proportionally increased. We have seen NGO facilities, protection facilities being burned down in the camp. We have seen physical violence, rape, killings. Just the day when we have arrived, they have attempted to kill a fellow sister because a group of people have perceived her as being too liberal, asking for too many services. Therefore, they tried to kill him with a machete that was welded inside the foreign annex of the camp. So they are able to produce these guns themselves. There is an increased number of escapes from the camp, and we have seen recently that people, women with their children, have managed to return, make their way back all the way to Australia. Good. These were good women with the with no malicious intent. But what if these women with bad intentions escape from the camps and make their way wherever, to Syria, to Iraq, or towards Europe or other parts of the world? So if we don't provide them with some sort of alternatives, and the ultimate alternative, especially for children, is to remove them from this very unconducive environment and return them to their countries of origin, they will be the next generation of highly radicalized people that are ready to commit acts of terrorism. The camp authorities are doing a great job. The UN, HCR, and Blue Moon, the partners, are trying their best to contain, but now this responsibility has been fallen to the Kurdish authorities for several years. So we are calling upon by GCERF on the countries of origin to engage with their citizens, and half of them have engaged, and Kosovo is an excellent example, leading the way in the Western Balkans, returning children, women, and possibly men as well. But there are half of the countries or citizens that are not doing that, in the Maghreb and in also among the member states and so on. The children need to be taken out from these camps. There is no other way for them to be safe and give them opportunities. They are victims. So let me hand over to His Excellency the Minister to explain what Kosovo has been doing for these children and the women, and with the support of GCERF. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will continue where you left it. So Kosovo is a regional pioneer in rehabilitation and reintegration of foreign fighters and their families that were residing and being active in war zones in Middle East. We have decided as a government, as society, that we will take back our people who actually, some of them with conscience, some of them were misinformed, and when they're making life of these people even more difficult than it was. So decision was brought that not only women and children will be brought back, but we will receive back even foreign fighters. Of course, bringing them back in Kosovo, we divide them in groups. The ones who are actually responsible, they face justice, they get prosecuted. The ones who were without their fault and direct involvement are being rehabilitated and reintegrated. Just like the men in the prison, we have special programs for rehabilitating them, but especially women and children who are the most vulnerable category, they're being rehabilitated and successfully reintegrated. We have 0 cases of recidivism. So having a comprehensive program with support of GCERF, with engagement of local community, local authorities, religious leaders, professionals in different fields, we have managed to successfully reintegrate all the returned citizens of Kosovo, which is not a small number. It is more than 120. Precisely is 123. We calculated that we have around 100 more of our citizens in that area. And of course, together with our allies, we are working on it to bring back all of it. My colleagues before explained the situation there. So for us, we believe as part of a responsible member of international community, it is very important to close these camps, not only for Syria and Iraq, but also for us. The case with Australian women and children, imagine that they come individually in Kosovo and they don't become a part of program to rehabilitate and reintegrate them. That is a possible risk for us. That is a possible risk for Europe and for other countries. So we not just accepted, but we are very appreciative of support of GCERF and support of other allied countries to overcome this problematic, which is very serious and asks for serious engagement too. So very comprehensive program, as I said, engaging community, engaging professionals, working with children who are really traumatized. We are facing raising or children who were raised in completely different surrounding, completely different culture, and making sure that they become responsible members of our society. Youngsters who are now working, who are now developing Kosovo, who want to forget the past, and foreign fighters who regretted what they did, and they will pay their due to the society, to humanity, and then they will go back into reintegrating into the society. Because of the success, it looks like it was very easy. Actually, it's not easy at all. With investment return, as it was mentioned before, actually only the will of all participating actors and the will of themselves. Also, it was possible to achieve all these results. Now, of course, we are not facing only this problem in terms of preventing radical extremism and terrorism. Now we're facing extra-right extremism, far-right extremism, and ethno-nationalism. We are working now with GCERF to get engaged into this too. So the good examples, good experience that we have with engaging into religious extremism, use that for this other problematic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Now, please, question, remarks, dialogue. Please, if you can say your media.
Yes. I'm Frank Schwalberhoth. I'm from Germany. I'm one of the founders of the German Green Party, the first Green MP and the first Green MEP. And yesterday I received an email from Laurent. He said, not enough people, therefore half of the people here are mine, which I mobilized. We are here in the heart of the European Union. Can you please outline a little bit what the European Union is doing and to what extent they might develop in the future a program to learn from Kosovo? That might be a nice exercise for Europe, but we all know a considerable number of those concerned are from the EU member states. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Andy Vermoot in the Gazette.be. I wanted to ask what to the Minister Cyril Svikla. I say it like this? Yes. What is your secret? Because 0% recidivism, no recidivism. What is your secret? How do you do it? Because it's easy to say. You said it was easy, but it's not easy to do. But how do you do it? And what can we learn, other European countries, learn from the Kosovo way of doing it?
Thank you. Please.
I am Pascal Nambarasi. I am interested in your work. I know you from a time here in Brussels. We are doing a good job because we need it. It is very useful for all people in the world. And thank you very much. I have just maybe one question. Have you ever tried to do this job, especially in free trades in Africa, or maybe you are applying to do this because you know the situation in free trades in Africa? Some terrorist groups. So this is only a question. I remind today, I think, is the International Day for migrant settlement, working migrants, I think, today. Maybe to remind this. It is not a coincidence, but I think the choice was very good today, to meet today. And I'm very interested, really, if I can contribute, because I'm also a member of our press club, but I am working in international politics international issues within AU and the UN. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please.
Good morning. I am a journalist for Ukraine Forever, Evelina Brezanska. Could you please tell me if there are currently any Ukrainians in Alpol or and Aleroj camps?
Thank you. Please.
I'm from Kazakhstan. Could you elaborate more about the Central Asian, your activity with Central Asian governments?
Okay.
My name is İrem Gül, İrem Gül Utlu. I am from Turkey. I'm a PhD researcher here, but also a former humanitarian worker. I worked by the border of Syria for 3 years, but it was more of northwestern Syria, so it was very interesting. Thank you for all the insights and input to this, and because I was involved in child protection and the protection projects as well, and I know how the situation is really hard there. So my question is, so you said since 2014 you've been working on Northeastern. No, it is quite recent, right? Just 2 years. Sorry. Just so before that, did you work also in northwestern Syria? This is one of the questions. And I'm also I would be very curious to hear about the possible solutions for Afghanistan. It is very important as well. Because I also conducted some field works with the Afghan children in Turkey. I mean, I don't know if it would be possible to collaborate on, like, with Turkey. The Turkish government probably hard, but but there are also so many unaccompanied children also in Turkey from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and I think they shouldn't be neglected. And I was even during my field work, I was even asked from them to take their voices to Europe because they were like, please record our voices, and this is very hard for us also, not only Syrians but also Afghanistan. The situation is very hard, so it would be also interesting to hear out your possible plans for Afghanistan as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Please go.
My name is Abdul Latif. I am a blogger running Kashmir Watch, and I am from Kashmir actually. I would like to know what are you doing about Burma, Myanmar, because there is also a conflict, and also in Kashmir we are trapped under 1 million militarized zone. So thank you.
Thank you. I think that's it's fine. You, last one, please.
Yes, my question is about countries of origin. How do you cooperate with them, or the countries of origin, do they, from their side, cooperate with you? Yeah. And they are ready to take children back and people back?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Very important issue. Now, maybe we can start replying, starting with you, Mr. Minister. What is the secret?
Well, of course, there's no secret because we want to share good examples. And I think GCERF is a perfect hub for that. So good examples of Kosovo to be used in other countries. But of course, just like we used good examples from other countries and other cases. What I would say is that what is the must is sincere engagement of all players, especially local players, professionals, constant monitoring and intervening, sincere will of the society to accept this group of people, even though we know that some of them made harsh mistakes. Of course, there is a law in Kosovo that prohibits going to fight in foreign wars. So they get prosecuted just by participating in these wars, let alone if we can get evidences of their crimes there. So this is secondary, I would say, but there is this mechanism of punishment which helps. But the most important thing is engagement of all players, sincere engagement of all players, and their will to get back into the society. For those who don't know Kosovo closely, society in Kosovo is European society, European culture. And them leaving that and going into completely new culture, beliefs, it's something which is not very natural, I would say. But coming back, for some of them, is going back into the past. For some, especially the children, facing something completely new. Some of the children were born, or some of the children were taken there while they were very young, and they don't remember how it is to live in Kosovo society. So there is this whole process of either reintroducing or informing them about the society, about the culture, about the rules of engagement, about completely new life. And of course, what is also extremely important is perspective. Facing them with completely different perspective that they had, or the experience that they had over there. Most of them are integrated now as equal members of society. They work, they contribute. They are accountable to their behavior on a daily basis. Of course, as I said, monitoring and intervening is also important. And yes, to achieve this, we got a huge support from allied countries, huge support from partners like GCERF. EU is heavily engaged in Kosovo, taking in account that we are in a process of integration into EU. Absolute majority of people of Kosovo, they want to be part of EU, just like we want to be part of NATO. And just the fact that all laws has to be in accordance with European acquis communautaire, then means that we have already determined our path. And in this path, of course, we get support of our allies. Sometimes bureaucracies hurt, but in general, we are getting quite a lot of support, and we are very much appreciative for this.
Thank you very much. Khalid?
Thank you. A couple of points, and then I'll hand over to Lila to answer the questions on Africa and Syria and all of the rest of it. Lila, please. Firstly, on the European Union, I mean, let me start by noting that both the European Union and many member states contribute towards GCERF, for which we're very grateful. Let me equally note some of the, what I would describe as hypocrisy around some of the returns. We have countries in Central Asia, the Western Balkans, North Africa to an extent, Indonesia, returning their citizens from northeast Syria, large numbers of citizens, highly radicalized, to very difficult circumstances. And we have Western European countries that will not return their nationals from the camps. And I think there's something to note there about the European response, which I think has to be addressed. And one of our ambitions at GCERF is, I think the reason that many Western European countries are not returning their nationals are for justifiable concerns. They are concerned about security. They're concerned about the financial implications. They're concerned about how citizens will react. They're concerned about whether reintegration is possible. I think if we can demonstrate that it is possible, zero recidivism, there is a secret source in places like Kosovo, surely we can find the same secret source in the UK, France, the Netherlands, and so on. So our ambition is to begin to share, as the Minister said, those experiences and lessons. The question on countries of origin, again to note, GCERF only works in countries where we're invited to work. We will always work with and through the states. And yes, the countries where we work are, as you've heard from the Minister, working with us to try to engage in returns. And there are some countries, including outside Europe, that are simply not willing to return their nationals. And so on this particular topic, we don't work with them, but we work on many other areas of preventing violent extremism. So the engagement of the country of origin is absolutely fundamental to make this work. The final point quickly on Myanmar, Afghanistan, we're not working directly in Myanmar. I think we should be. And one reason we should be is that this is an illustration that violent extremism is not just about Islam. This is a completely different form of violent extremism, and we insist violent extremism is not about Islam, violent extremism is not about religion. It's a wider set of challenges than those. So Myanmar, I think, really illustrates that point. Neither are we working in Afghanistan, and neither, frankly, is the international community working in Afghanistan, and I think that's a huge problem and mistake. The reason is it's very hard, of course, to engage with the Taliban. But we know that within Afghanistan, there is a real rise in radicalization. There's a radicalization industry taking place in Afghanistan. And I think for the international community to put its head in the sand and hope for the best is not a particularly sensible strategy. So someone needs to engage in Afghanistan. It will be very difficult. The link I'd make between the two, and this is a very politically sensitive topic, but I think it's an important topic to confront, is the risk of radicalization amongst refugees. And we are certainly seeing amongst the Rohingya, where we have worked for many years, Lila in fact led that program, we're not there at the moment, but clear signs of radicalization amongst the Rohingya in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. Clear risks, I think, of radicalization amongst some of the Afghan refugees in Pakistan and Iran. This is not to throw shade on refugees. This is simply to say that if you have lots of young people in inhumane conditions for a long period of time, don't be surprised if one of the consequences is radicalization. And I think that's simply a fact we have to confront. Lila, please.
Thank you. Just to add the secret, number one is really political willingness to return and working with the state. Secondly, to engage long-term with the returnees and working with the other communities to reduce their stigmatization and increase their acceptance. Provide them with services, with hope. No, if you are given an alternative, whether to engage in something meaningful and productive or to join a terrorist group, people with the right mind will choose to have alternatives. Most of the people that join terrorist organizations are not ideologically motivated. They join, especially in the Sahel, in sub-Saharan Africa, because there is no alternative. We saw in Somalia, where GCERF is also working, they are joining because there is no alternative but Al-Shabaab, who gives them $100 a month, who gives them a status where they can belong to, and they are able to marry and so on. So just to add on what was said, yes, in terms of engaging, so GCERF is starting the support of foreign nationals already in Aroj and Al-Hol camp through a pre-departure support program, which means preparing them for return, countering some of the misinformation and disinformation that they have, educating children to have more pro-social behavior, providing some vocational skills to women who want to go back. Then once they are returned or repatriated to their countries of origin, which hopefully will be the case again for a new wave of returnees to the Western Balkans, to Indonesia, is we provide them with this long-term rehabilitation and reintegration support through civil society under the with coordination of the national authorities, engaging the local governments, training frontline workers, and so on. So this is the whole cycle that GCERF aims to support. Vis-a-vis the Lake Chad and Sub-Saharan Africa, so GCERF also engages in all Sahelian countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and I focus on these three, and also in Chad, providing alternatives for people who have disengaged from various terrorist groups, for instance, JNIM. We are working a lot in various prisons in Burkina Faso and Mali with the prison officers to train them, but also with the individuals, the fighters themselves, who have been captured and who are currently serving their sentences. We also work with their families outside. So once they get out or they have served their sentences, they can be continue to be supported. And this is very important because not very many organizations are engaged of the rehabilitation and reintegration of former JNIM fighters. Thirdly, we are not aware of any Ukrainians being currently in Aroj and Al-Hol camp. There are a lot of people from Russia. There are a lot of people still from Central Asia, despite the fact that Central Asian countries have also repatriated hundreds of their citizens, Kazakhstan leading, and Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan following suit. We know that there are also discussions with some of the Central Asian countries in terms of repatriating still their citizens. Similarly, GCERF is supporting the rehabilitation and reintegration of Kyrgyz nationals in Kyrgyzstan and also starting up in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. The situation is somewhat different than in the Western Balkans because the numbers are larger and they are facing different challenges. What is important that we need to understand at the first place why these people have left. So to prevent them again to leave and join foreign wars. So what is important is to address these root causes or these drivers of people leaving. What are these drivers? Is a perceived sense of injustice, the lack of opportunities, the lack of hope, or being misled online, offline by different people and different groups. So if we work in these, then we believe that we can prevent people to leave again. I leave it here. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
I think I owe it to my team to explain additionally that this was not easy task. Absolutely, it's not easy. We are determined to do it, but it's not easy. Especially in the start, we had to send part of our team undercover in these camps to identify our citizens, to communicate with them, to convince them to come back, to take care that the internal mechanisms in the camp don't be an obstacle by force, because there were resistance in some groups to allow them to come back. And again, in these kind of circles, together with transportation and then documentation and everything. So it is not easy, but our determination, and as I said, the support of our allies made it possible that we returned this big number, which for Kosovo is really a huge number.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Unfortunately, we have to close here because we have the board of the GCERF starting in 10 minutes. Just one point, you understood the difference between other intervention and this prevention is about people. It's an investment on people, individual. You know, big project of development can create scheme of works, but if people are not mature enough, convinced, skilled, having the capacity to understand that this is the way to get out, to get rid of, to prevent terrorism, you know, then this will not work. This is why this segment of work, which we call PVE, is fundamental. It's tailor-made. 160, maybe you can say, you know, what's 160 people? We enter back to turn that 160 into terrorists. And then you see that the numbers and the significance of the sum of the number immediately changes. So this is the investing in people. This is tailor-made. Being in the Sahel, no, with communities, being individually in returning. So this is the key difference. This is why it lasts. This is why, you know, we have to maybe make it more visible, a more political a priority, also here in the Union, where it is not enough. Let me say, I'm a former one, therefore you can say that, because the Union is doing a lot, but maybe this pillar, structural pillar of development is not visible enough. Here we have a clear let's say, evidence of the fact that we are doing, and we can promote to do it even more. So we have to close here. Thank you very much for attending. Obviously, we can be available for whatever kind of exchange, mail, etc. And have a good day. Thank you very much.